Hi everyone, welcome to Security Joe's Forensic Workshop. My name is Norman, and in this video, we're going to investigate a memory dump using a volatility tool for extracting artifacts from a computer's memory and with the help of the debuggers. First, what is volatility tool? Volatility is a command line RAM analysis and forensics tool used for extracting artifacts from a memory dump. It has a lot of option switches that can parse various information from the memory dump, such as running processes at the time of infection, page permissions, and many more. For this workshop, our scenario is that a computer has been infected by a malware and encrypted a confidential file. Now, the user of the file requires us to decrypt the file, and in order for us to decrypt it, we need to find the key. With the use of the volatility tool, we're going to dig deeper in the memory space to find some hint about the key. Now, the tools that we will be using are the volatility tool, X32 debugger, the IDA, PE Studio, and an optional of Flare VM. So let's Joes. All right, I'm now in my Flare VM machine, and here are the tools that we're going to be using for this workshop. Let's open the volatility tool. And let's key in our first command, the image info. Now, the image info will give us the summary information of the raw memory file, and this will also help us to identify what profile we're going to use for our next command. And it's also an important step, especially if you're investigating raw memory from an unknown machine. It may take a while, so let's just wait for it to finish. Okay, so here's the result of the image info command. It tells us some details such as the date and time the memory has been acquired, the number of processors of this machine. But what we want here is the suggested profile. This profile tells us that the raw memory is running a 64-bit machine. So we're going to be using this one, the Win7SP1x64 profile. Okay, let's key in our second command. As you can see here, in my next command, I've added a profile, and we have specified the one that we got from the image info. And now what we want is to list the process tree with this command, ps3. Let's hit it. Now, this command will list all the running processes captured in this memory, which is a good start in hunting unusual or suspicious process ran on this machine. In reviewing some processes, it is important that you are familiar on what is normal and what is not. Like if it's a common Windows process or not, or if you see an unknown process with a complete random or gibberish characters, you better pay attention and review that process tree, as there's a high chance that it might be related to a malicious file execution. Although not all the time, the suspicious process is easy to identify. Now let's take a look at this process tree and see if we can find anything interesting. Okay, so I can see here some WinWord and PowerPoint processes and some Google processes, and the rest are common Windows processes here. All right, now let's take a look at the process tree using the PID and PPID. Okay, PID stands for process ID, while the PPID is the parent process ID. Let's check this SVC host.exe here that has a 784 process ID. As you can see here, the parent process ID of this service host is this one, the services.exe. So in this case, this is good because service host.exe is a commonly being executed by the services.exe. So let's try and find other interesting process here. Okay, now let's check this service host here that has a process ID of 2360, and its parent process is 1204, and this parent is an explorer.exe. Okay, now since this has been executed by the explorer.exe, it means that it might be suspicious or possibly not a legitimate service host. Okay. Now, before we proceed with our next um, command, let me give some short trivia. Now, on a computer, there's a lot of things running in the memory side. And in memory, there's thing called memory protection. What is the memory protection? The main purpose of the memory protection is to prevent a process from accessing memory region that has not been allocated to it. This prevents a bug or a malware within a process from affecting other processes or the other operating system itself. Think of it as a permission that's been given to a memory space or region when an executable file is normally loaded. This protection is called memory protection constants. And as you can see here, below are some of the examples of memory protection constants and its description. If you're familiar in giving some permission into a folder, you may see some familiar permission here like execute, read, write copy, read only. And in memory space, there's also a permission similar to that one. Okay, so in memory, a memory region is given a protection called page execute write copy by default of the operating system. This protection enables a read-only and copy-on-write access permission to the memory region. But if an attacker wants to inject a malicious PE file or a shellcode, then a memory with a page execute read-write protection needs to be allocated in that memory region, which means that all the files allocated on that space can be executed, read and write. Now, we can find these information in the volatility under the VAT tag, or what we call virtual address descriptor. This virtual address descriptor consists of useful information about the address space of a specified process, such as the permission or the memory protection constants value that I've mentioned. Now, let's go back to our VM. Okay, and let's key in our next command here, the malfind. Now, the malfind command helps in finding hidden or injected code DLLs in a user mode memory. Based on the characteristics of VAD tag and page permissions, we can somehow, or we can use that in our investigation to find some suspicious or malicious process in the raw memory. Okay, but take note that some results of malfind can be false positive, so it's better to review the results carefully. Okay, now we have the malfind result here. Okay, as I've mentioned earlier, we have a bad tag here. And let's check what permission has been given for this process. So as you can see here, most of them have the page execute read write. Okay, meaning it can be executed on its allocated memory. And let's try to look for the suspicious process of service host.exe. Okay, so this is this one, which is 2360 process ID. And there's another one here. And look at this. We have a PE signature here in this process. And it's highly likely that it's suspicious or a malicious file, or it can be a shellcode. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to dump this process. So I'm going to typing in the last command here. Okay, so we're going to use the malfind, but this time we're going to specify the process of that service host.exe. And we need to specify the output file or the output directory of our dump file. So let's hit enter. And as you can see here, we have the two dump files now here in our directory. So we are going to investigate these files now. Okay. Let's now review the two files that we have dumped out of the memory. So let's start opening this file into PE Studio. This file doesn't have that much information, as you can see here. These fields are empty. So nothing in here. I'm gonna closing it. And let's try opening the second file. Okay, so this one has more details in it. We can see here that it is a DLL file. It is a 32-bit. And there are some indicators here as well. And in strings, let's see if we can find any clue or some helpful strings that we can use in our investigation. Okay, so this nice almost there. This one is interesting. Let's see if there's any. Okay, so far this is the only string that we can try and see if we can use it. So let's take note of this. Nice, almost there. So I'm going to be closing the PE Studio for now. And I'm going to make a copy of this dump file. And let's try to rename it into a much more meaningful name, wherein we can easily identify it inside the debugger. So let's try it, decrypt key.dll. Since it's has been identified as DLL, we can rename it into DLL, save it, and then let's open it into X32 debugger and into IDA. Let's open the tools side by side. Okay, now the first thing that we need to do here is to identify the entry point of that DLL. Okay, so to do that, in our keyboard, let's press F9 in X32. So F9, and as you can see here, let's expand this. It points out straight to the entry point of that DLL. So take note of this address, the 741.214.11. Okay, now let's go to the memory map and then let's locate the decrypt.dll. So this one, and it has a different address here. Now this address, this is the address that we're going to copy in the IDA. So in IDA, let's go to edit and then go to segments and then rebase program. Now let's type here the address of this decrypt key. So it says there it's 7412 and then 4 zeros. Okay. And then click OK. And then let's go back in X32 debugger and then CPU tab. And then in IDA, let's go to exports. And as you can see here, the entry point is now the same in the debugger and into the IDA. It is now 74121411. Okay, that's good. Let's close the other tabs for now. Okay, so again in IDA, let's try to find the interesting string that we have found in the PA Studio. So to do that, we need to click on View, open Subviews, and then click on Strings. As you can see here, this is the string that we have found. Let's double click on it. And then make sure that this line has been highlighted. And then on your keyboard, press Control and X. And then you will have this window. And then just click OK. And then we are now inside that strings function. Okay. So let's have a look on this function. So let's try this function. Okay, let's take note of this function, the 74121040. Let's open a notepad and then let's note that. So 74121040 of the nice almost there string. Okay, now let's go back to the exports. Okay, now since we have identified the entry point and we have the end function of our string here, the nice almost there, which this string might be some clue for us to find the decrypt key of the file. Okay, so what we're going to do is inside the entry point, let's try if we can find this function. Okay, so let's go back to exports in IDA and then double click on this. And now we are inside the first function of that entry point. And as you can see here, let's compare the functions here in the debugger. So this function 741215A3 is this one. And this function is this one, the 741212DB. Okay, now let's try to go inside this function in the debugger. So we're going to be pressing the step over key here until we reach that address. So here, okay. Now from here, let's click on step into it. Stepping into it means we're going inside this function. So let's do that. Now we're inside that function, and from this function, let's try if we can see the end function of that string. It is 74121040. Okay, so I'm going to be pressing the step over again until we find that function. And that one, is it this one? And 4120. Okay, so I think this is the function that we were looking for. Now let's try again and step into it. Click the button. Okay, so let's go back to the strings tab and click on this one again. Highlight the string of nice, almost there. Control X on your keyboard. Click OK. And then let's check here. Okay. So as you can see here, we've managed to find the function of this string into the debugger. So this values here, this represents the array values that will run the logic to generate the password that we are going to use for us to decrypt the encrypted file. Okay, and these values are similar to these ones. Let me fix the view, these ones, and these actions are the actions that's going to be passing the value to these array values. So I'm going to be simulating this code, and I want you to pay attention into these registers, the EAX up until to ESP. Okay, so let's start here, and then I'm going to be pressing the step over again. So step over. All right, passing through the array values. Okay, so this is the start of this loop. As you can see here, there's a loop arrow here. Let's try and step over to it. Okay, as soon as I reach the end of this code, I have the letter G here showing. So I'm gonna continue clicking on step over here, and then it should go back to this loop until it finished. So I'm gonna be pressing the step over a bit faster until the loop has been finished. Okay. Okay, so as you can see here, it passed through to that loop, and it's now showing this message here, says great job with 3 exclamation mark. So there we have it, guys. That's the password for our encrypted file. So that's how we investigate and look for some clues from the memory using the volatility tool and debugging it into IDA and to the debugger tool. And that's it, guys. I hope you learn and enjoy this workshop. If you have questions, comment down below and visit our website, securityjoes.com, for more updates and build from us. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up.